I think it's probably time to drop the Psaki bomb. What do you think?
All right, let's do it.
All right, let's do it. Here we go. All right, every week we try to find some things that Jen Psaki has dropped from the podium, and we have a wonderful collection today. Ask about the Hunter Biden laptop. And I want to give a little background here. Just before the election, the New York Post published excerpts from the laptop. Miranda Devine, reporter for the New York Post, a truly remarkable journalist, documented every bit of it. This was not just, hey, I heard from someone who said, but she was able to take the contents from that laptop, analyze them, and put them forward. And it was salacious information. Some of it was just, you know, pathetic and disgusting, but some of it involved Hunter Biden's business deals with China, with the Ukraine, and with Russia, and how many billions of dollars that he was enacting, and that a 10% cut went to the big guy. Now, who was the big guy? Well, Tony Bobulinski, who was his business partner, said the big guy was Joe Biden. Now, that's a pretty big piece of news. Polls show that if people had known what was on the Hunter Biden laptop before the election, 16% of the people who voted would have voted differently and would not have voted for Joe Biden. This very well could have swung the election. So here's the interesting point. The New York Post was banned from Twitter and Facebook for publishing the truth. This week, the New York Times has now come out and validated that the very story about Hunter Biden's laptop is true. Now, the New York Times, CNN, NBC, all of these entities just pooed the idea that there was anything to it. It was Russia disinformation, they said. In fact, when Jen Psaki was asked about it, here was her bomb.
The New York Times has authenticated emails that appear to have come from a laptop abandoned by Hunter Biden in Delaware. The president previously said that the New York Post story about this was a bunch of garbage and that it was a Russian plant. Does he stand by that assessment?
I've pointed to the Department of Justice and also to Hunter Biden's representatives. He doesn't work in the government. Go ahead.
Oh, that was a quick shift. Like, hey, watch this sleight of hand. Didn't work, Jen. Here's why. You say Hunter Biden didn't work in the government. No, he didn't. Fair enough. But you know who did? His pop. And if his pop was the big guy getting 10% of the cut of these billion-dollar deals that Hunter was bringing down, do you think it would bring him down because they thought Hunter was the brightest light in the bulb? I mean, in the chandelier? I don't think so. Because his last name is Biden and his pop was vice president, now president. That's why he was getting all these deals. And if that's the case, then we've got a very compromised government with a compromised president. I'm not trying to be dramatic. I'm just telling you, look, you don't have to even be smart to figure that one out. Well, Jen Psaki left the Bombay door open. She didn't close it. She dropped another one. Here we go.
If you won't detail the consequences of what happens if China does start support Russia, might you indicate whether there are any carrots that the administration is prepared to offer, perhaps tariff reductions?
Well, this is a conversation about where President Xi stands. It's up to the Chinese to decide where they want to stand, where they want to be as the history books are written. So I think it's more through that frame than it is about carrots.
Yeah, I think that's up to the Chinese more than it is about carrots. You would think she was talking about actual vegetables. I was just stunned by that whole lack of sensitivity in which she says the Chinese will determine how their history books are written. You better believe they will, Jen, because the Chinese don't write history as it happened. They write it as they want their people to believe it happened. Now, speaking of COVID, Jen Psaki at the White House press room, she has a really interesting scientific revelation to share with us. I want you to watch this clip and see if you don't maybe detect just a little bit of maybe unscientific conflict here. Watch.
If the president, 79 years old, president of the United States, were to get COVID, might be more serious than somebody in their 20s.
Well, we don't know that, but we also know that COVID impacts people of all ages and a range of. But when we take what we do here, Jen, is not exactly as you said. So I wouldn't agree with your description there. I would say we do take extra precautions.
Well, I would hope you do take extra precautions. As the reporter pointed out, the president is 79 years old. But then she said something that is patently false. I would call it a lie, but I'll just say it's patently false. That's a euphemistic way to say it's a lie. She said, we don't know that older people are more susceptible and have more complications. Hey, Jen, what happened to the science? Because the science on that, honestly, has been real clear. Yes, older people are more susceptible than younger people. In fact, little kids pretty much don't get it at all. And if they do, they have such a mild case, they barely have more than a slight headache. My own grandchildren got it a couple of years ago, early on, and it wasn't any big deal for them. The older my friends were that got it, the rougher they had it for the most part. So this nonsense that we don't know, you know, she blows that off as we don't really know whether it's as bad for older people. Somebody please get a message into Jen Psaki at the White House that maybe she ought to check with the revered Dr. Fauci on that, because even he, the revered Dr. Fauci, says it's much worse for most older people. Just scientific fact. All right. This is also Jen Psaki. She is asked if Biden declaring a climate emergency and banning all U.S. exports of oil is a good idea. Here's her answer.
Domestically, on another subject, the Congressional Progressive Caucus recommendations for executive action are out, and they're asking for a decision to declare a climate emergency and ban all U.S. exports of oil. Is that something the president is thinking about doing?
There are a range of really good ideas out there. President's looking at all of them, but I don't have anything to predict for you at this point in time.
One last quick one to start.
Yeah, she said there are a lot of good ideas out there. Well, let me tell you what isn't one of them. Banning U.S. exports of oil. Why would she do that? Why would we ever want to enrich the Saudis, the Iranians, the Russians, the Venezuelans, and impoverish Texans and Louisianans and people who live in North Dakota, Oklahoma, Arkansas, New Mexico, and California? What's wrong with her? What's wrong with Biden? What's wrong with the left and the Democrats who hate the oil and gas in America but are willing to go and spend big money to get it out of some other country that hates our guts? This should not be that hard. I absolutely find myself just not able to comprehend the logic here. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, be sure to leave a like, then subscribe, and hit the notification bell below. Now, if you didn't like it, you ought to find a Ben Shapiro video to detox you with more facts.